That's amazing.
So appreciate that.
Do you remember, how many of you remember Larry Norman? Yeah, come on. How about Russ Taff and the Imperials?
Oh, yeah.
Come on. How about Evie Special Delivery? Come on. Come on. All right, hey, thank you. That was awesome. Those are great songs.
Yeah.
They really are. I wish we could sing.
I know.
We can't.
Yeah, we were definitely in that first group of like, yeah, if you don't really sing much, you can do this. But
Yeah,
we did it with gusto.
Yes. Hey, I want to mention something real quick on the back table. Podcasts have, for good or evil, become the thing today. It's the new public square. It's where we talk about ideas. So we started a podcast 5 years ago called the Winsome Conviction Podcast. We invite people on that we disagree with, both Christians who disagree on certain issues, and then us and non-Christians. We just want to model what it's like to have good conversations, good, healthy disagreements. So you can grab a podcast card back there and check us out on our website, winsomeconviction.com. You can listen to all the different people that we've had on. We've had on some amazing people, and have had some really good, spirited, I think, helpful disagreements. Yeah. But hey, what do you want?
The reason we're here tonight.
What do you want to do tonight?
We're going to talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex.
We're going to talk sexual intimacy, because here's the thing. Howard Hendricks, who was a professor at Dallas Theological Seminary for decades, amazing man, said we should not be ashamed to talk about what God was not ashamed to create.
Yeah.
And I think for most of you, probably your pastors have a hard time, like it's not going to be a Sunday sermon topic. That's a little bit hard. You know, you don't know the audience. It might not be applicable. It might be inappropriate for some. And so there are very few places that Christians can come together and talk about a really important topic, and a topic that has been so misused and misconstrued in the world around us that we feel like it is an important thing. Like, this is the perfect time we're gathered here. We may never see most of you again, to be able to dive into this topic, right?
Yeah, and this isn't something we do all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't have people over and go, hey, how's your sex life going? Like, so,
no.
But we think this is really important to talk about for a multitude of reasons. So let's talk about an interesting experience we had with one of our anniversary dinners.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this was my all-time favorite anniversary card that I got for Tim. On the front, there was a little puppy. The puppy's tail is wagging, and it says, honey, this is what I hope for our anniversary. And then you open it up, and in all capital letters, it said, hot sex now.
Lord, you're faithful. It was awesome. It was the dog with tail was wagging.
It was very happy.
Until
It was like an accordion card, so you open it up, and it turns out that hot sex now is actually an acrostic. And it's the H in hot stood for holding hands. And then the O stood for openly talking. And then the T was the last letter in watching a ballet.
The T of hot was watching a ballet?
Yeah.
Okay, the tail was not wagging quite as vigorously.
But here's the point. So, and throughout the dinner, Tim would take the card and close it, and I would take the card and open it. But this is the thing is, for me, that was expanding the definition of what is hot sex.
Yeah.
What is the kind of connection that I want to have that's not just about a physical act, but it's about a multi-layered, holistic connection. And so to me, that is what hot sex would be, not just a physical act.
And it highlights some of the differences between men and women's view of sex. Now, some of that is God designed, some of that is cultural.
Sure.
Right? Culturally, we grow up with certain ideas of how men view sex, how women view sex. So we're going to kind of unpack a little bit from God's perspective, this whole idea of sex, because it is God's design. I mean, he's the one who thought of this sexual union. So I love that it starts by saying sex was meant to be experienced only in the context of marriage. Now, can it be experienced outside the context of marriage? Absolutely. And is it even pleasurable outside the context of marriage? The answer is yes, but it's not what God intended. C.S. Lewis said a car can run on many things, but it was meant to run on gasoline. So sex, for you to flourish in your sex life as God intended, it needs to be happening within the context of marriage.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one is, sex is a gift from God, and it's intended for mutual pleasure. Yeah. This is one of the areas that our culture has kind of misguided us. And I would say I think it's shifting a bit, but there was this old notion that really sex was for man's enjoyment and something that a woman did to feel loved. But God designed both the male and the female body to enjoy the sexual experience, to experience sexual pleasure and sexual release. And so to just think that it's about one or the other, God is calling us and designed our bodies to experience it mutually. Now we understand that sex can only be expressed within the context of marriage, faithfully can only be expressed within the context of marriage. But I will say, something that's very important to most women, and I can't speak for everybody, is that as a wife, you want to feel like you are more than just your husband's sexual relief valve, right? Like he knows that he can't go outside of marriage, and so you're his only option. That is not a very inviting posture for most women.
What?
Well, I know. Is that
not?
Shocking? We want to know that you are interested in us holistically, not just because we're your only option, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. Sex is the divine process for implementing God's command to multiply a godly legacy. That's part of the cultural narrative. So think about that, ladies, just for a second. God is God. You could have gotten pregnant any way he wanted, right? It didn't have to be this mutually pleasurable experience. You could have gotten pregnant by pollen. You walk outside, the wind blows, you're like, oh, okay, right, kind of a thing. No, it's this mutually pleasurable experience is part of procreation.
So we also feel like that there are a lot of myths that surround the whole sexual area. And I don't know, did anybody ever watch this show Mythbusters? You remember our boys loved Mythbusters. Yeah. But the whole premise of Mythbusters is they would take these theories or hypotheses and they would test them, and then they would decide, is it plausible, is it confirmed, or is it busted? Yeah. So we have a couple of myths that we think really may have informed some of our ideas about sexual intimacy.
And can I just add real quick? It's a myth that if you run in rain, you will get less wet. No, walk in rain, because if you run, you actually get wetter. Mythbusters.
Yep, that's something we learned. It did.
Boom.
Okay, so one of the first myths is that sex should be effortless. And that's really, you can see that's influenced by the media. So did you know that there's actually, in Hollywood, there is something called an intimacy coordinator? Right, so all those love scenes that you might see in a movie or a television show, obviously, there's a whole crew, there's lights, there's sound, and there is a person whose job it is to coordinate how this looks. So what you're seeing is so far from reality. And I don't think any of us want somebody like entering our bedroom and going like, no, I think you should, let's angle this way a little bit more. But like, that's how not real it is. Yeah. But that can kind of give us this idea that sex is this instantaneous, easy, amazing moment that doesn't take any effort. It doesn't take any forethought or conversation or maybe even outside information to help you navigate something that really is quite complex.
And so we need to stop saying that to the young generation. Hey, if you love each other, if you're committed to God, then the bedroom's going to take care of itself. That's just not true. Like, we need to understand that sex can actually be a very complicated process influenced by a whole lot of different things. Sex is a means of improving the relationship.
Yeah. So if you know the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat, a thermometer only measures the temperature, the thermostat changes the temperature. So you have to think about that a little bit like that with sex, that sex can be a diagnostic. Like if there's something off in the sexual intimacy area of your marriage, that might indicate something is off, but it's not the solution, it's not the cure. So you can't just go, okay, you know what, we're actually not getting along and we're not communicating well and we should just have sex and that's gonna fix everything.
Welcome to the movies.
Yeah.
Like the movies, like we're really mad at each other. Like you're angry, and then like The Notebook, it's a thunderstorm, and suddenly they go from arguing to passionately kissing in a thunderstorm. I don't think we've ever had an argument in a thunderstorm,
No.
and we certainly haven't passionately kissed in a thunderstorm.
When we're in the rain, our goal is to get out of the rain.
Yes, Okay, let's do another one.
Okay.
That spouses, we view it the same. That is just not true for a multitude of reasons. I do think we've been conditioned very differently sociologically. We've been brought up, men are brought up with a very different narrative when it comes to sex. No doubt that's been informed by pornography. It's been informed by Hollywood's version of everything. But men, that's in the backdrop. So we carry that right into the marriage bedroom. It could be some very unrealistic narratives that we need to really understand how much we've been influenced.
Yeah. And then the last myth is that both spouses have the same desire level. So we've read some research by Dr. Michael Sitzma that's been really helpful, and even just giving us language to have conversations around this. So we're talking about desire level, not like arousal level, arousal style. So a desire level, once you can do the next one, basically, he divided it into 3 areas. There's initiating desire. So that's like the person that says, hey, wanna, you know?
Yeah.
Then there is...
It's raining. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Then responsive desire. But the initiating desire is the person that thinks of it more consistently, is the one that's going to take the step toward the other spouse. Responsive desire is more saying like, well, I wasn't really thinking about it, but I could be up for it. Like, it wasn't on the forefront of my mind, but I'm happy to respond. That sounds like fun.
Right.
The last one is resistant desire, and that's more where you're saying, I wasn't thinking about it, and it's not going to happen. There is no room for it. So when you think about it, initiative desire is kind of like you're in a car and the car is in drive, right? It's moving forward, you're moving forward. Responsive is more like you're in neutral, right? With a little bit of effort, you might get moving. Resistant would be like you have the emergency brake on. Like nothing is going to budge you. So I do want to say, let's just start with that for a second. The resistant desire, if that's where you find yourself consistently, like not just a season, not just because, you know, it's that time of the month or you're going through menopause or there's other maybe medical or stress things, but a consistent place in your marriage that there's strong resistance, then that's where you really are going to need to seek some additional input or help. See a doctor because it could be something physical. You may need to see a therapist, talk to a pastor, read some quality Christian literature, because that is not a healthy place for a marriage to stay. Again, that's above our pay grade, but we are going to bring your attention to it and say, don't just suffer and live there. But let's talk about the other 2 just for a second. Only 10% of couples report that they are both initiating desire.
That's great. That's shocked us.
Because again, what's shown in the movies is, they can't wait. Everybody wants to, they're both like, how fast can we get this car moving? They're moving toward each other. And that is not the case. 83%, one or both, say they are responsive desire. So they're not resistant, they're not opposed to it. It's just not the first thing that they're thinking about. So kind of understanding your spouse and your own desire can help avoid some of the conflict that can happen around sexual intimacy. Also know that desire levels can change given seasons of life, age, stress, health issues.
Certain medications.
Even like if there's any kind of substance abuse, if there's been any kind of physical abuse. So those desire levels can change. They change minimally, they're pretty consistent, but you can see some change in desire levels.
Yeah, and we know that conflict resolution, make-up sex
Yeah.
is the popular language, but we do know that couples that successfully resolve conflict do find that actually improves sexual intimacy because they're resolving conflict.
Because the conflict's been resolved. It's not the thing that resolved the conflict, but it's better
Right.
because conflict has been resolved.
So now let's talk a little bit about some of the differences that men and women bring to sexual intimacy. And this can cause problems, and it's good to know where we're generally coming from. Now we're going to make some generalizations.
Yeah, and they're generalizations because they're generally true. This
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they should be true. These are not biblical standards. We want to make that clear.
Yeah.
This is just, we're looking at differences. And one of the things, again, that Dr. Seitzman says is that these are differences. They are not deficiencies, right? So you may look at this chart and you may be like, I don't find myself at that point. That's also why we put arrows, right? Because you could be anywhere on that continuum. So if you find yourself in a column that doesn't seem to match, that is totally fine. We are not saying right and wrong. We're not saying biblical. These are just statistically where people may fall. So let's take a look at some of those.
Okay, the first one, attitude. Generalization, men are compartmentalized, which means it's like a physical reaction. So ladies, we get it. We get that sometimes the timing is not good, right? But ladies, the launch sequence has been initiated. Okay, and we're like, wow, okay. And I know, Noreen's tired. Like, she's like, wants to go to bed, and I'm like, hey. What do you think? And your response is?
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, and I'm saying, oh, there's a chance. Yeah. There's a chance this might happen. So we get it. We get that sometimes this is not the right time. But for men, I mean, being physically ready to go is a very, it can be a painful thing. It can be a complicated thing. We know that we're being insensitive, but we're still going to maybe throw it out there.
Yeah. You're still going to initiate, perhaps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For women, we do tend to be more holistic because it's not just about the physical release or the physical experience, but it's about the relational connection.
Right. Yeah. Now, let's talk about feelings. Okay, so men, ladies, we want to know that you enjoy this. Okay, because we understand we put you in a bind. We get that. We're not oblivious to that. We've already said the only way we can experience sexual intimacy is within the marriage. We're not going outside the marriage. And you know that. So we wonder periodically, are you doing this just to do your wifely duty? Okay, or do you enjoy it? Right now, I'm in higher education, do an experiment. Ladies, if you want to know how much it matters to your husband to know that you really enjoy this as well, the next time that you've been intimate, the next morning when he's shaving, just walk by and say this, right? Just walk by and say, hey, last night, That's it. That's all you need to say, ladies. Just walk by and say, hey, last night, woof, right? And just notice his reaction. In fact, Noreen goes, hey, last night, and I'll be like, actually, I had an off night. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, right? I'm going to go build a deck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, man. So just do that little experiment, and you'll know that men are like, oh, so you really do enjoy this? Yes, I enjoy this, right? And sometimes you do it because it's your wifely duty, but sometimes it's like, no, I think that's, yeah, right.
Okay, so for women, it tends to be more emotionally driven because we want security. We need to feel secure and safe. Yep. If we're going to bear our bodies and our souls, that needs to be a safe place for us. So we need to feel closer before the physical act of intimacy. And when our kids were young, I remember Tim actually asked me, what do you find arousing? And I thought, let me think about that. I'll get back to you. And we went for a walk. We were at a little park near our house called Annie Jones. We'd go there a lot with the kids and walking the path. And they're skipping stones and feeding the ducks. And we're just kind of walking behind them, holding hands. And I said, this is it. this is what I find arousing. We're having just a really special family time, and I'm feeling connected. This is what I find arousing.
And I could have responded better. I was like, kids, get in the van! No! Take the duck! Take the duck! We had that duck for years in the backyard. Okay, that probably wasn't the best.
But you got the point.
I got the point.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. Okay, let's talk about stimulation.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, we are, for the most part, partly God, partly culture. We're sight motivated, right? And we have to guard our eyes 24/7. When we talk about the pornification of America, that is for real. It's a billion-dollar industry within the United States, and it has warped our thinking about sex. So men, we guard our eyes, but we don't have to do that with our wife. Right? So one time Noreen was getting out of the shower and I was sitting on the bed and I was just looking at her. And Noreen goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm looking and it's not sin." Right? Now, just to show you how different we are, I get out of the shower, I have a towel wrapped around me and there's Noreen, and I think to myself, why deny my wife? So I drop the towel, hand to God. The response from my wife was,
Please don't leave a wet towel on the floor. And I'm not sure I said please. It's just not the same for me.
totally true story.
Well,
Tragically,
tragically true.
totally true story.
Okay, so women, more person-centered touch. We're about attitudes and
Non-sexual
words.
touch you mentioned a lot.
Non-sexual touch, yeah. And again, because vulnerability requires security, we want the whole thing to make sense to us. And I remember even saying to you one time, excuse me, I want you to make love to me all day. Of course, that was misunderstood on the get-go.
Let me call the office.
Yeah. But what I meant was, again,
Yeah.
remember, acts of service is my primary love language. So if Tim sees me struggling in the morning to get out the door and says, can I help you get ready? Or can I make your cup of coffee? Or don't worry about the dishes, I'll take care of that. Or if he sees the dishwasher is full and empties it, or the garbage needs to be taken out, those kind of things speak love to me. Or like a phone call during the day, a text to check in.
Yeah.
It's an all-day thing.
Coming out to greet you when you come home.
Yeah, and which
Yep.
you always do.
Yep.
If Tim
Yep.
is at the house when I come home, I know when I open the garage door, he's going to let our dog Raleigh out, and she comes bounding out, and Tim will come out.
And I'm usually dressed in a towel.
No, that would be bad. For the neighbor's sake, that's all I'm saying. That would be bad. For
That
the
would be
neighbors.
bad?
For the
No,
neighbors.
for the
Yeah,
neighbors.
you get reported.
For the neighbors.
But no, so those kind of things,
Yep.
like it is an all-day
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
because for me, it's harder for me just to switch gears, right? To like sort of feel distant all day and then suddenly we have dinner, we're getting ready for bed and you're like, hey baby, do you want, well, you wouldn't do that, but.
That was my move? That's my move? I sound like Yogi Bear. What in the world? In my mind, it's a lot
It's better.
smoother than
It
that.
is.
Yes.
But the point is, for me,
Yes.
a long on-ramp
Yeah.
is going to get a much better
That's a
response
great way to phrase
than
it.
a sudden change of direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sexual response. Okay, so generally speaking, men are quick excitement, right? I mean, it happens sometimes unexpectedly. We get aroused very quickly, and once we're aroused, it's hard to distract. Like it's just very difficult to get us out of that mode, which causes problems
Yeah.
when we're in the mode. And you're different when it comes to this, like the
Yeah,
whole.
we definitely are. So for women, we're cyclical. So let's just
Yeah.
we have a real hormonal cycle. And I hope men that you believe that when your wife goes through some of these things, she's not making this up. There's a hormonal cycle that most women go through pretty regularly, and there are times of the month that our hormones make us more interested in initiating sex, makes us more responsive. There are times that the hormones might be waning a bit. Doesn't mean that it's not possible, but it might take a little more effort to get there.
Yeah.
So we are more cyclical. We tend to be slower to excitement. Remember, that's the on-ramp.
Yeah.
Like it tends to be a little bit of a slower on-ramp for me. And we're more easily distracted. We've tried to think through this. I can't remember one time that we have been moving toward intimacy in an intimate moment that Tim has ever said, "What was that?
What was that?
Did you hear that? Are the kids up? Did somebody make a noise? Was that a knock at the door?" Like that's not him.
And when the kids were young, that door is triple bolted. And it's like Noreen honestly said one time, she goes, "Hey, what was that?" And I was like, "It doesn't even matter. If it's the zombie apocalypse, we're dead anyway. And if it's robbers, that's why we have home insurance."
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what could possibly be? But for you, it was distracting.
Yeah, and even now we're empty nesters, but we have a son who's
Oh,
a
Michael,
physical therapist.
God bless him.
And I know, but he has patients in our area. He travels to patients' homes. When he has a break, sometimes he'll just pop by the house unexpected. So now I always put the night lock on, which he can't.
Yeah.
So if he uses the key, he can't open the front door. He'd have to like knock to get our attention. But I think of those things.
Well, I do too.
Okay.
I mean, I think of that too. How much therapy will cost for him. But hey, listen, there's nothing better than day sex, right? There's nothing better than afternoon sex. I mean, I think it's, right?
Right, yeah, that's
Because we're not tired, we're not, you know what I mean?
So honestly, let's just, we're empty nesters.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to figure this out.
Yeah.
That, like, you can have sex at any time of day.
Yeah.
We were so in that routine of, like, you put the kids to bed, you go to bed, you have sex at night. And then there was one day where we were, like, standing in the kitchen. We were like, wait a minute, you're home, I'm home.
To be honest, you're the one who said it. Noreen initiated it, like, let's have sex. I'm like, where's the duck? I mean, I'm like, holy cow, that was awesome.
But anyway, so that's,
Yeah.
but okay, we'll talk more about that.
All right, let's talk about orgasm.
Why not?
Why not? We're never going to see these people again. Orgasm. All right, for men, this is more predictable. People study this. I don't know who these people are. God bless all of them. Men generally achieve pleasure anywhere from a minute and a half
No, honey.
to
I think it started
the
at
woman
3.
is correcting the man. Minute and a half to like 3 minutes. Women, it could be anywhere from
Like 10 to 15.
10 to 15 minutes. So you can see how selfishness comes in right away. Men achieve, pleasure, and we're like, I bet you the fourth quarter just started. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yep.
So there was an article that I read about the female orgasm, and they said it's more of a marathon than a sprint, right? So but there needs to be mutual pleasure. We talked about that there's mutual commitment, that both people experience pleasure.
Yeah.
Another thing that we read in one of these books is that to understand that for the woman will not always climax through intercourse alone. And I think it was upwards of 80% of women will not achieve climax just through intercourse. There needs to be some kind of additional stimulation. It's just sometimes the way bodies match up, what arousal styles are like. And the reason I want to say that is I hate for women to suffer in isolation, thinking like, what's wrong with me? Everybody, it seems like, it's how it always is in the movies.
Yeah.
Nobody ever questions this. Yeah. But you think something is wrong with you, and that is not the case. And it's a good thing for husbands to understand as well in trying to help their wives achieve pleasure in that moment. The other thing, this is another myth, is the myth of the mutual orgasm.
Yeah.
Now, again, if that's you and you find that, mutual orgasm, that you can time that, good on you. It's not the norm. And so if you, again, are thinking about Hollywood and that sex comes easy and natural and effortless and that you both climax at the same time and, there's this amazing relief, that's not the way it goes. In fact, the way they described it, they said, coordinating an orgasm with your spouse is as likely as coordinating a sneeze. So think about this. It actually makes sense.
I love that.
Because a sneeze is a physical response to some kind of stimulation. And you can feel it coming, right? You can kind of like, oh, I'm going to sneeze. You can hold it back maybe a little bit. Sometimes you can, it comes out, you can make it come out faster. Sometimes you lose it. That's really annoying. So there's all these things going on, but the chance of the two of us, like, okay, we're going to sneeze at the exact same time is really minimal.
Yeah.
So let's not put that pressure or make that the goal or feel like we're missing out or we're disappointed because we're not experiencing mutual orgasm.
Yes.
Whew.
You ever
Okay.
think you'd be doing that in front of an audience of people?
No.
You ever think that was going to happen?
I thought you wanted to talk about spiritual battle next.
Oh, no, remember it's after this?
Okay.
Is it? Oh, you're right. Here we go. All right, here we go. So obviously spiritual battle is a part of this. Obviously, the ancient church always believed intercourse was a sign of the Trinity. They always believed that. There was the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. There's a husband and the wife that love, the love in between them. So Satan wants to disrupt that in a heartbeat. So selfishness can come into sexual intimacy. Many couples find it really hard to talk about sexual intimacy, and so they don't talk about it, so they kind of fumble through things. I think the new generation is so much farther than the old generation. The new generation wants to talk about this, right? And listen, we have got to do a better job with the sex talk. Right? I never got the sex talk from my parents, right? I learned everything from sex from pornography and the collective wisdom of the high school football team. Okay, you know what I mean? So we got to be able to sit down with our kids and have a sex talk, right? And it's not one talk, it's a series of talk. And do not go into it arrogantly. I was doing my master's at the time, and we were in this group in North Carolina where we made a blood oath to everybody.
We all had kids about the same age, and none of us had talked to our kids about
None of us.
sex.
Here are godly couples, committed couples. None of us had had the sex talk. So I was doing my master's arrogantly. I put the kids down. Noreen is right next to me, and I'm just like, let's have the sex talk. I go, okay, guys, Dad has a penis. Mom has a special area. Oh my gosh. Noreen is rubbing my sex talk ended with, let's go to Chuck E. Cheese. That is how my sex talk ended. I called Family Life. I said, you have to have something. And fortunately, they do. They have great resources. The story of me or us, the story of me, age appropriate, and you go through it with your kids. But I find it remarkable that the church is hesitant to talk about sex in the most sexualized age in the history of humanity. We're the only ones wigged out. And if we think we're putting thoughts in their mind by talking about sex, those thoughts are there. With the advent of the phone and the pornification of America, our kids are getting stuff that we never even dreamed that they could get through their technology.
So it's better to be preemptive
Be
than
preemptive,
responsive.
not reactive. So we better start having really productive sex conversations. I think it's important.
Let's go back to that for a sec. The guard? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what I want to talk about. You guard what is sacred, right? We have good gifts, and you want to protect your good gifts. I think we protect what we naturally value, probably, maybe not at Mount Hermon, but at home. You lock your car, you might lock your house. If you ever have a babysitter, you vet that babysitter, right? Because you are guarding what is valuable to you. And so what would it look like to guard your marriage and to set some boundaries? So the first thing we want to talk about is setting boundaries, because boundaries can help us prevent one thing from leading to another. If you've ever heard, especially where there's been some kind of breach of trust in a marriage, often one person will say, well, it just happened. Like, it just happened. Yeah. And very few things just happen. There were decisions that were made along the way, that little steps that took them closer and closer and closer till they got too close to the edge, and then fell off. If you set your boundaries back here, then you have a bit of a safety net. And so setting boundaries around things that are important.
Yeah, so we need to flee temptation. Jesus had some really radical statements. He's speaking to an audience who says, if your right hand offends you, cut it off. If your eye offends you, pluck out the eye. Now, we know he's talking hyperbole because I can cut off my right hand, I still have my left. I can pluck out both eyes and still mentally lost. But he's saying, listen, get rid of that cell phone. If that cell phone's killing you, that cell phone that can launch missiles and you can get everything on your cell phone, if that is what's causing you a problem, get rid of it. If you're not handling Netflix well, get rid of Netflix. Right? Let's be a little bit radical. So again, I grew up with a dad who was addicted to pornography. So on my phone is something called covenanteyes.com. And my computer, this is a Biola computer. Covenant Eyes is on this computer and my phone. At periodic times, a photograph is taken of whatever is on my screen. And my accountability partner, who Noreen trusts, Dr. John Mundy, gets an update every single week. And Noreen knows that. Noreen knows that she can trust John, and we hold each other accountable. So I'm really fearful that we are not taking the cell phone seriously enough, and that has totally changed pornography, how it's disseminated. So we need to make some really hard decisions, and maybe we're not the best one to know if we've been compromised. Like, we might think we're doing just great, but we may not be the best ones to understand that Satan's already getting a foothold. So technology is great. We're not going backwards. But we need to start to control our technology better. I say to young men, if you don't have some kind of safeguard on your phone, Satan's already got one foot in the camp. And let me just be quite honest with you, men and women, if there's not something on your cell phone helping you accountability-wise, it doesn't have to be Covenant Eyes, then I think Satan's already won a victory in that he's lowering your defenses. Technology is great, but we need to make sure it's not leading us in places we can't go. Yeah, and find a community that supports your biblical values. Now, whenever we say that, people come back to us and say, we wish we had a small group just like yours. So here's what I would say when it comes to sexual purity. Go to covenanteyes.com. They have this wonderful program, 40 Days to Purity. Now, they send you an email every day. You react to the email. You respond to it. There are people that you can talk to anonymously. You can form a virtual community through covenanteyes.com, right? So again, the Christian life was never meant to be done in isolation. We always need to have a community.
Yeah, and you want that community to encourage you to work things out, to stick together. Not the kind of thing that, if you go to this certain friend and you complain about your spouse, that they're going to be like, oh yeah, you need to ditch that one. Like, let's move on. So we want to have that community that's going to reinforce the things that we want to be true, and that even model that, not perfectly because nobody does, but that you have similar values and that you can walk in that together.
Now, listen, the last one is talk about it, but let's be very careful, right? Things that are said can't be ever taken back, life and deaths, and the power of the tongue. I think the sexual intimacy talk can be pretty dicey, and I think feelings can get hurt pretty quick. Mm-hmm. So I would suggest you get a really good book on sexual intimacy written from a Christian perspective. I think that the ones that we really like, Sheet Music, I think is good. What's the one we recommend at Family Life?
Sexual Intimacy in Marriage. Is the one that
Sexual Intimacy in Marriage. Maybe read it together, because then that book allows the topic to be brought up. You're not bringing up the topic. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's good. And do it do it during the day, do it during a date night.
Yeah, like kind of a neutral location.
I wouldn't have this conversation like right before you head into bed, right? I would have it in a place that you can be honest with each other, but know that this is a pretty sensitive issue for men and women. Sexual intimacy needs to be talked about carefully.
Yeah, I had a friend that said, expectations without conversations lead to frustrations. So we need to be able to have those conversations around our expectations, around what we enjoy, don't enjoy, what encourages us, what our expectations are, or you will end up pretty frustrated.
So let's talk about 4 practices for a flourishing love life. Companionship, let's keep pursuing each other. Good for you to be at a marriage retreat for the entire weekend. I think that's awesome. This is not reality. This is Mount Hermon. Reality is waiting for you on Monday, Sunday afternoon. All the problems you left are there. If you left the kids off with somebody, they've gotten worse. Grandpa and Grandma went into survival mode, right? So just know all the stress is waiting for you when you get back home. So we got to work into the schedule. Companionship,
Right,
actually.
yeah, communication, time together, date night, non-sexual touch as well as sexual touch.
Yep.
But yeah, finding time to spend together. The next one is commitment, right? We want to build trust with one another. Are we assuming the best about one another? Are we giving each other the benefit of the doubt? Are we seeking and granting forgiveness often as needed? And then showing that there is an ongoing commitment, that we are seeing that there is a future together. One person said, when commitment is lacking, sex feels risky and a spouse is left feeling vulnerable.
So let's talk about the trust thing real quick. The Christian community is actually split on this, and I can see wisdom on both sides. Should your spouse be your accountability partner when it comes to things like sexual purity? I don't think there's a right answer to this. I think it's couple specific. We've made the decision. John Lundy is my accountability partner when it comes to things like sexual temptation. Now, the only reason that works is Noreen really trusts John.
Yeah.
John is tough love. He's not easy love. We just feel like for us, it's hard for a husband to be fully honest with a wife, in my estimation, because we know how much we're hurting you. Can John be disappointed? Yeah, but I don't think I'm hurting his feeling. He's not taking it personally. So, but that's us. Every couple needs to negotiate this in kind of different ways. And honestly, there's two different camps within the Christian community. No, your spouse should be your accountability partner. I think that's going to be couple specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the next practice is passion.
Yeah.
Are we romancing one another?
Gosh.
And this is sometimes what happens over the years is you kind of get into a rut.
Yep.
You do the same thing. You forget that there's a passion relationship. You kind of become more colleagues, co-workers,
business
partners,
yeah.
going through checklists rather than passionately pursuing one another. Now, I am not very creative. And so I'm not great at like coming up with fun, creative date nights, but I am great at using little books that give me tips, like here's some fun ideas for date nights.
Yep.
And that really has helped us a lot, is like just taking some other input.
And you just get into a rut. And let me say one mistake we can make is the kids become the priority. The kids drive the marriage. It's all about the kids. They absolutely set the schedule. Listen, we're preaching to the choir. Our kids all played on sports teams. We were so busy we wouldn't even see each other on weekends because the kids were on different teams, right? So no, we have to make sure that we're a priority, and the kids need to know mom and dad are the priority of this relationship. So you don't get to interrupt us all the time. This family is not going to revolve around your hobbies or passions. I remember one time our kids made all-stars in baseball, and we called the coach, said, yeah, you give those spots to other people, we're going to family camp. That coach literally said to me, I've never had a parent ever declined all-stars. And our kids loved it. They were like, Dad, thank you for making such a hard call on my behalf to focus on my spirituality over my lifelong dream of being on All-Stars. Dad, thank you.
Yeah,
no! They were like, what? You did, no, go without us. It's called family camp.
Yeah.
No, it's like, yeah, but we gotta make these decisions, because I do feel like if there's one affair happening, it's a family affair. More than anything else, we're putting the family above the kids. And that is not ultimately healthy for the kids.
Yeah, and what does it look like to prioritize that passionate area of our life, of making sure that at the end of the day, there is still some energy left, that you're not so exhausted from work, that you're not so involved in other things, ministry outside the house, that then there's no energy left. And I do think as much as you can, we talk about Sabbathing, but something like a date night can go a long way, where you have just, that you can, there's going to be a time every week that you're going to connect, not about business So we're not talking about schedules and budget and taxes and things like that, but just a date night where you actually get to connect.
And that could be the kids upstairs. Like
Absolutely.
we just said, hey, kids, go upstairs.
Yep.
Give mom and me, give us about an hour and 15 minutes. Do not come down unless you've seen Jesus bodily. Do not come down those stairs, right? 'Cause they just need to know this is mom and dad time, and we're the priority. You're not the priority.
Yeah.
And we know from psychology, derivative power is a nightmare. When those kids think they're the most important thing and everything revolves around them, it is not good for them moving into adulthood, right? They begin to think everything revolves around me, and that is really unhealthy. Listen, we're preaching to the choir. We went through crazy seasons with the kids.
Sure.
We really did. And then spiritual intimacy, pursue God. Like carve out time. So we like to talk, we go to a great church, pastor's awesome. So we like to talk about the sermon on the way home. If we miss a service, like we're traveling now, we will go back and listen to it. When we're reading different books, we'll read quotes to each other and things like that. So we do try to foster that. It's up and down. Right?
But again, trying to pray together regularly. Each individually pursuing the Lord, but then also looking for things that we can do together to spur one another on toward growth.
Yeah, that's important. So let's pray for you, but with one little caveat. Whenever we speak on sexual intimacy, mostly at a family life marriage conference, we want to say one thing. Do not assume that tonight everybody's having sex. Like, just don't assume that for a multitude of reasons. One, for some of you, it's physical. Right? There's just, that is not a physical reality, what's happening at this stage of your life. The older you get, the more that becomes a reality. Second, some of you feel like, hey, this has been a good weekend, but I don't think we're there yet. I think there's still issues of distrust. I think it's been fun to laugh, but we're not quite there yet. I think going to bed tonight holding hands and having one of you pray, I think God is absolutely delighted in that. So, and then for some of you, awesome, go for it. I mean, it's it's great, and maybe we should lead by example.
I can't believe you just said that.
I can't believe I just said that. Probably. I've never said that before.
I know, and you should never say it again.
We'll never say that
Because
again.
we'll never be invited back.
That's a death grip right there. That is really, no, I'm kidding. All right, so take the hand of your spouse and let me pray.
Oh, dear Lord, have mercy.
Let me pray for us. Father, we come before you and we delight in the fact that you are the giver of good gifts. Every good gift comes from you. But Father, we live in a culture that has warped that gift. Sex, it's something I bet you don't even recognize, the way it's being treated in Hollywood through so many different inappropriate means. But help us to redeem that. Help us to view sex as you did, as a one flesh relationship form of expression of love. And so I pray for every couple in this room, those who are doing great, and this is such a nice reminder for those in the room that this is hard. It's been a while since they've been intimate, and pray for tenderness, that intimacy doesn't have to just be physical. It can be words of affirmation, non-sexual touch. Meet every couple where they're at, and you promise to give grace that is sufficient for the day. And we claim that. We pray in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.